Hi everyone, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick gear rundown, a bit of a run through of my rig. There was a previous video I showed about building my pedal board up. Now I want to show you kind of how I use what I use in a live situation with a little bit more detail. So always I'm using Sennheiser wireless equipment, so I've got my Sennheiser G4 EW100 wireless mic transmitter. I always use the 945 capsules on top of those. Just gives me the best frequency result. As still I like being wireless, and I've just kind of chosen Sennheiser as my mic of choice for that. As well as those, I'm using a lot of these Sennheiser G4 and G3 belt packs again on their SK100s or EM100s. I use these for wireless guitar. I also use them as wireless receivers and transmitters for my in-ear monitors as well. I've got various down on the floor and on the board down here. That's my wireless transmitter with a Sennheiser CI1 connector into it, and that's my wireless mic as well, again with the receiver there. So they are just little battery powered receivers, really easy to use and really portable, which is great. So that's kind of like my wireless stuff. Then obviously one of the main things is guitars. You'll notice I've got Taylors up behind me here. This is one of the ones I use all the time. They're all 314s. I've got a few of these through the years. So this is a recent 314, probably about 2 or 3 years old. I've got 2 of these that I take out with me on gigs. A lot of people tell me that I'm daft for taking these sort of expensive guitars out on gigs, but well, I said because they're about $2,000, I think the equivalent is, or about £1,800 each. But they are the best sound for me, very reliable, and I love the pickups, the depth of sound. It's not just all very tinny. Certainly when you're doing a lot of looping and percussion on the guitar, it sounds really good, and certainly for all the effects process. So Taylor 314s, I swear by them. Next, moving into the rig a little bit more. So I've got my Roland HPD20 hand sonic module here. I've got various different things set up, but this allows me to be able to kind of like put some really good thick sounding drums and things on. This is like a bit of an 808 dance kit with some synth stuff on for No For 3 from Desire by Gall, if you know that. I kind of use that a lot for that. Some hand claps and stuff on. It also has a config for a little bit of just a normal drum kit with a bass drum, snare toms, cymbals, congas. You'll see a video of me using this in a loop setup shortly as well, in an actual song. But that's my HPD20. Also, more importantly, I find because my performances are more about filling the dance floor and keeping things going, this is a godsend. My kick pedal, that's a kick trigger for this Roland kit, so whatever kit I've got selected, this is the trigger for the drums, so it means I can just play, keep things going, and have a really good sounding drum sound and a fuller sound when I'm just trying to keep a dance floor filling out, and it gives me a bit of variety than just kind of having a standard beat all the time through all my loops. That brings me on to like the pedalboard situation. So at the minute, I've got the Looper X in, the new Sheeran Looper X in on my board. Still getting to grips with it a little bit. I keep swapping it out with the Headrush Looperboard every now and again. I think I've said before now that what I really want to see from these guys, and they're very responsive to be fair, and opening to messages and feedback, is just the effects being able to be routed to an input and not a track. As soon as that's there, I am done, I am happy, everything is going to be grand. But this is the Looper X, and I've got my loops configured on there because again I am always trying to fill a dance floor and keep that energy going. I do have some pre-recorded loops that I can quickly jump between, so that instead of building up the whole song every time, I can quickly cut into some high energy stuff and get the dance floor going. But I still always do quite a lot of looping and building up from the start as well. Maybe a couple of songs in a set just to kind of showcase that element really. So next I've got my Voicelive 3 pedal down here, which I use for effects. This is for vocal effects and guitar effects. So vocal effects, I have my reverb off, reverb on. Set on that, just nice and easy access. So again, I can talk and interact with the crowd without it sounding like a well. As well as that, when I'm doing some more dance tracks, I have my reverb on. I can have a delay, vocal delay. That's useful if I'm trying to get things going. Just to note as well, I actually have a MIDI out from the Looper X or whatever Looperboard's in there to the effects, so that whatever tempo is kind of kicking in on the loop station will transfer over to my delay effects as well. We've got a double, just a little bit of a thicker sound and an overlay for when you're doing more dancey tracks and when you're kicking into a chorus and more. This is going to sound rubbish, but a vocal harmony as well. So I have a high and a low harmony, and I have different settings on this on presets for just a high one. High and low is my standard kind of go-to, and that just kind of gives me a little bit of something. That sounds rubbish because it's picked up off the guitar input to try and get your root note to get your harmony from. So that's the vocal effects I use pretty much all the time on there. Those four, and then into the guitar effects. If I pick my guitar up, should have done this first really. So if I pick my guitar up, get that wired in, I have a couple of different effects lined up for it, which check my, perhaps if I turn the pack on. So I have my acoustic guitar, so naturally in the PA system I just have a little bit of reverb on the drums and the guitar anyway. But if, depending what sort of song I'm doing, I have different kind of effects. So I have a bit of a modulation effect, which is good for things like Backstreet Boys. Or actually, it might be good for Prince, that. Good Prince medley there. I have a little bit of a reverb on, which is sometimes good when you're trying to get some like deeper string sounds kind of going in. So that is just a really wet reverb. I also have a little bit of a distortion overdrive bit. Just for thrashing a few chords around if I'm doing that, or more for solos and giving it a bit of a lift. I often do a delay and a lift if I'm doing any kind of sort of solo work, usually something. You get the idea. But generally speaking, I tend to be quite clean on a lot of things. The other thing that I have going on usually is I have an Octav pedal that I use from the loop station. This is the one thing I do really like about the Headrush effects, and that tends to be the pitch pedal with a slight bit of compression and an EQ tweak to give it a bit of a bass lift. So I've got something on here, I think he says, turn it out mute mode. So sounds a bit like that. Oh. Get the idea of that. So I use that effect on there, and I'll go into some details on another song cover that I'll do about the actual effects and how that's been repped up for that particular song. So that's the guitar effects. Next onto more of a mic looping kind of thing. I use this Loopi AB switch over here, or AB Output switch, which is down on the floor here, if you can see it. And what I like to do with that is it will normally always route through to my PA system as the main vocals, but then I also have it coming into an input on the looper station that's always turned on so that I can loop vocals through. If I clear this off, so it means I can be selective in when I'm looping vocals. The reason that I have it set like that, I don't like having two microphones. I think that if you should be carrying extra kit if you don't need to, but also when it comes to getting things, turn that off a minute, that one. When it comes to getting your sound right and building up loops, I'm a big believer that it shouldn't take you forever to get to the core of a song. You should be able to kind of loop and kind of keep things going as naturally as you can. For an example of that, just kind of like, I'll start a little something like, and and let's say I want to start singing over a song now and not loop the vocals. See, I'm talking and it's in overdub mode, it's not looping, but I want to kind of start off like, she's a reading, na, 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 I wanna know, and again, I'm talking, I can sing, I can loop over that without having anything, but then the moment I want my vocals to come in on a loop, I can kind of get that in. That should now be coming through. You can hear the stuff in the background. Or because that loop microphone is quite a little bit lower than the main level, so still getting the balances right on that. So there we go, that's my loop switch. Next up, one of the recent changes I put in, I used to use a little stomp mix, a little gig board pedal thing on my board, and I just found I didn't have the right control or the right quality coming out, to be honest with you. So I decided to put in a Midas digital mixer. Again, I was more conscious about the size and depth and getting everything into this board. So I went for the Midas MR12. I know the MR18 is more featured, but it would just have raised it a bit too high for it to actually fit in my board correctly and still be used. 90% of the gigs I do will be myself, a guitar input and a drum input, and then maybe a second vocalist, and that's literally 4 inputs that need to go in. That is it. And have 2 IEM outs, one for myself, one for the other singer, and then the main output. That's all I need. So I only really need 4 inputs, but I have got the option there of some extra inputs. I know they're not all XLR-ins or whatever, but it gives me great control and it fits in the board, more importantly. And the quality of sound that comes out with the features and functions is fantastic. I've obviously got the iPad mixer set up here, and you can see on this, like, I can control everything. I can flick through quite quickly to get to my bus levels. I've got I'm using Mix Station on this, and I've made some custom layouts so I can turn my effects on and off. I've got the access to the different bus channels straight away, access to the effects levels, the main levels, everything right in front of me. It's just easy. I have been warned there's some possibilities of dropouts and stuff with the app to the mixer, but I'll be honest with you, once we've done a sound check, other than pushing the master up every now and again as the gig goes on, it very much is a set and forget situation for us. So that's the mixer, and that's pretty much it, really. That's pretty much the whole board, the whole gig rundown. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel, do subscribe and like if you like what you're kind of seeing. I'm going to do a couple of loop videos shortly about the Looper X. I've got one up there already, it was very well received. Going to put another couple on of it set up in my setup, just as I'm kind of getting used to the flow and things like that. So, and if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll also put a link down to list all the equipment that I use on there, just in case anyone else is interested in that.